Truck 1, Ambulance 1, Medic 1, showing all units en route to 5.
Ambulance 7, Primary Code 3 was on.
All right, welcome, Corey. We're here at the Going Interior podcast about doing hard jobs and living well. I'm your host, Jamie Cavanaugh, joined today by Corey Lovern, a retired captain from the Grand Junction Fire Department. He was here with us for 29 years, 3 years in Palm Springs before that.
Yep.
Hazmat team coordinator.
Yep.
You and I were on the peer support team here together for about half a dozen years.
Yep.
Let's see if I got it now. You're an instructor with Safety Inc. You're also instructing at Colorado Mesa in the fire science program.
I am.
Yeah. All right. Skier, race car driver, perfect game bowler.
There you go.
Husband, father of two. What else you got? This is a pretty good rap sheet.
Thought I was going to be a Rockies player, but ended up not. That's so why I ended up being a firefighter.
Is it? What? Yeah. Tell me about it. Were you played big time baseball?
4 years of college, drafted.
Yeah.
I had to make the decision at some point which direction I went, and apparently the Rockies wasn't it.
So what age were you, if you don't mind me asking, when you went into the fire service? You made that choice. Did you?
So I was about 25 years old.
Okay.
Graduated from college, had to make a decision, had some really lowball offers to play pro ball.
Sure.
And decided that maybe it was a different direction I needed to go. And, I was highly active. It was a hard decision. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So somebody, an ex of mine, suggested that I try firefighting.
Okay.
So I put myself through Fire Academy in Greeley.
Okay.
Took the EMT course. I started testing, and I got hired in Palm Springs, California.
Okay. And then you made your way back to Colorado.
I
clearly,
did.
Shortly
then
thereafter.
2.5 years later, I had the opportunity to come back here. I tested here. It's sort of amazing because in the old days, we had 700 or 800 applicants per job.
Sure.
And so I think it was myself and John Williams were 2 out of 700 or 800 applicants that got hired here. Yeah. And that was after 2 years of experience in Southern California.
Wow.
So,
yeah. And John Williams, retired battalion chief, great man that hopefully we'll have on the show someday as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's how I progressed, and that's how I sort of entered this. And actually, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
So,
how did you find it back then? Did you go through an academy?
I did.
At the fire department here?
No.
Okay.
The academy that I had here was, so you were a firefighter for 2.5 years? Yes. There's a truck.
Okay. Absolutely.
That was my academy.
And that must have led to some different sorts of experiences, I would guess, where, we say safety first sometimes now. I'm guessing it was a little different.
So 2 years of experience in Southern California was at the time, 10 years of experience here.
Okay. You were running a lot of calls, a lot of fires,
transient hotel fires, motor vehicle, tire storage, warehouse fires, some really gangland shootings. Real gangs were there,
Sure.
So I got a huge experience in those first 2.5 years to come back to Grand Junction, which was my home.
Okay.
So I was born and raised here.
Okay.
So I got an opportunity to come back.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it was really cool because I got to come back. Back in those days, really that first year, you didn't open your mouth.
Sure.
And they made it real clear that you shouldn't.
Sure.
And so after my first year, I had the opportunity to share some hose loads. Mm-hmm. They hadn't seen a pull loop in a hose load before I got here.
Okay.
So I initiated some of those things. So.
You guys ran a lot of. It sounds like you ran a lot of crazy calls back then too.
Yeah.
What did people do to deal with stress back then when you started? Or was that something you talked about, or what do you think people did?
They didn't really talk about it.
Sure.
It was the expectation was we are firefighters, and that is the job, and that's what we do. Get on with it.
Okay.
Now, what were some coping mechanisms that we had in the day? Bantering.
Yeah.
Really off-color joking, which I'm sure still goes on.
Sure. No, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're coping skills.
Yeah.
They're a way that we get through some of
Absolutely.
the stuff, the way that we deal with things, and some of the awful, awful stuff that we see. You got to have some kind of outlet. Really, the emotional support team was well into my experience as a firefighter.
Sure.
And so it was different. And I can remember when you asked me to be part of that, and Whitey asked me to be part of that, I was like, what the hell do I have to put into this? Because really, I was raised old school.
Yeah.
And not that I think you need to keep your chin up and not let that stuff bother you, because that's not real either.
Yeah.
But we have our ways within the crews and the groups that you work with and your immediate core guys
Yeah.
that you deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sort of how I dealt with it the first 25 years.
Sure. Well, I think something that Jason and I certainly observed, both working for you for a while, then he went on to become a captain, as did I. Your crews were tight, man.
We were real tight.
They were, whether you called it peer support or not, I mean, they were doing it. They were joking with each other, but they were also,
We were real tight.
brothers and sisters,
I remember one time they asked an incoming recruit class where their number one choice was where to go.
Yeah.
And it was Station 2 Red Crew.
Yeah.
Everybody, not one person, but the whole crew.
Wow.
Well, I caught some flack about that.
Huh.
What are you doing? Are you making it easy on the guys? Are you doing this, doing that? It's like, absolutely not. We are a tight-knit group. We bring everybody in. We have expectations on how to perform, and we have fun.
Oh, those aren't mutually exclusive?
No.
How did you guys have fun? What did you do?
There was anybody that knew that came in was like had a target on their back. They got the clear tape about eye level. I can remember Wes
Yeah.
Ingbarth. We had him set the tones off. He came running out of his room. He hit the sticky tape right in the front of his tape, and it took almost his eyebrows off. Brian Shervany was working with this new guy. He got the mixer, the power mixer, set on a timer in the bucket under his bed. So when it came on, it went gung, 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 gung. Little things like that.
Yeah.
One thing on my side that went a long ways, if somebody messed up, it wasn't an individual mess up, it was a group mess up. And I went to bat for many a guy that was getting some heat elsewhere. So several of the employees that weren't making it elsewhere, we brought to Station 2 Red Crew, and we made it work, and they're good employees today.
Not lowering expectations, though, you're saying.
Different ways of accepting them, working with their strengths, accepting their weaknesses, building on the weaknesses, and taking their strengths and making our group stronger.
There's this really popular book that you probably should have written called Extreme Ownership. You just basically quoted when you were saying the whole team,
Yeah.
You share the credit when there's a
Absolutely.
success, you absolutely share the credit, right?
Yeah.
But when there's a deficiency, it's not just, oh, my firefighter messed up, I'm not going to sell that guy down the,
Absolutely
down
not.
the river. It's all of us. It's what
And
did
it
I
paid
do
huge
wrong? What did we
dividends
do
in the
wrong?
backside of that.
Yeah.
We were tight. We were really good at what we did. We were caring. We were excellent on emergency medical calls, and we were good on fire calls. Not only that, but we were at that tight. Those crews were so tight. I was at Station 2, I think, 16 years, which at that time took about half of the call volume of the city on an annual basis.
Yeah. Do you recall what the calls per year were for Engine 2 at that time?
I don't remember the total number, but I think it ran between 15 to 20 calls a shift.
Sure. Yeah.
Most I ran, I think, was 26 calls in a shift.
Yeah. So people saying they want to come there, like that's
Was amazing.
That's
That
saying something, because
that
now
was the
people
beating. That was the beating post. So-
exactly. If you can make that fun,
Yeah.
you can make anything fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's this saying in these adventure sports like mountaineering and stuff. There's different types of fun, right? Type 1 fun, we're skiing a powder day, right? It's great. Unapologetically awesome. Type 2 fun, I don't know. At least we're here with our buddies. We do it again next week. But type 3 fun is like, that was awful, and it'll take me at least a year or two to want to do that again.
To want to do it again. Yeah. But we all hit each other in the arm, beat each other on the back, give each other a hug.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
And we probably grew from it too.
Absolutely, we did.
Those licks,
there were some really, really awful things that we saw.
Yeah.
But we were good at what we did, and we were able to shoulder it to where it was there and it made you feel bad, but then you're able to push it off because you knew that we tried to do the best that we could do.
Yeah.
And try to make it better.
Yeah.
And control the things we could control.
For sure. What were those tough ones for you and your team? What do you recall? Like, I don't want to drag you in the mud too much.
Dead kids.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah.
And so those were all calls in themselves that were just awful. I remember a couple distinct calls where you had a passing of a family member, but then consulting and talking to the live person.
Yeah.
And not forgetting about them when we'd left the room.
Yeah, totally.
That was tough. Always was.
Yeah.
But it was really, really important that we did that.
For sure. Now I can see you being really thoughtful about that part, and that's huge.
Making phone calls, waiting for family to get there.
Yeah.
Taking their kids for an extra 30 minutes, an hour while family members showed up.
Yeah.
Little things.
Yeah.
I made an example the other day. I was telling our class, it's Christmas time, went to this lady's house, and she was sick. Took her kid on her lap, treated her, did all that stuff, and being nosy captain, the apartment looked barren. Well, I opened all the cabinets. She had nothing. No food, a little bit of milk in there, no bread, nothing. So the crew pitched in about $300, went to Safeway, filled her fridge.
That's cool.
So that kind of stuff, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, some of those guys you were mentioning before, Wes and Jason, they eventually started that firefighter foundation that allows us to reach out. We see something like that on a call. There's an actual fund for that. So they just did the turkey trot that helps support that kind of thing, which is really cool. You know that you guys were just doing it. You saw a need and you just do it. Which I so appreciated about you and Jason. You see a need. You see your brothers and sisters in need in the fire department, and you're like, what can I do about this?
We didn't fill out paperwork looking for accolades. We none of that.
Yeah,
it was within our group. Yeah. We were quiet about it. We took care of it, and we felt really good.
So as I was saying, I have clearly not been at this as long as you have, just about 20 years for me in different capacities and stuff like that, but definitely some calls that have stuck in my craw. And I, working in a smaller community before, just like you lived here, you know, at some point, like you see people that, you're seeing people even, that are being beset by tragedy. It gets, definitely gets challenging.
I was always afraid I was going to encounter a family member.
Yeah.
I never did that in the 30 years I was here, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of friends.
Sure.
A lot of people I knew.
Sure.
Just live in the community, but I never had to deal with a family member that we went on a call on. So that was a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to this this story the other day, and it was this Dr. Perry, who's a psychologist, but he's doing all these studies about trauma and how it affects people. And one of the things he was saying is that one of the most useful things can be, like you guys were doing, just these having people that you're super well connected with, that if you feel like it, you talk about it for 3 minutes at a clip. You don't sit for an hour and a half all the time. It's useful to have a therapist. I'm not going to downplay that by any stretch, nor did he, but, it can be super, super useful in healing just to, to get that off your shoulders as you go. When you're ready, you're not sitting in the big meeting.
I remember one time after a dead kid call, sitting in with my guys, a couple of my guys said, no, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And I brought them all back in. I go, no, this isn't what we do. I go, if this doesn't bother you, you're not human.
Yeah.
So absolutely, let it bother you.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to go help the next guy.
Right.
But damn it, you're not going to forget about that ever.
Yeah. Yep.
And we'll live with it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. And we'll grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like I said, you will never forget this.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's talk about it. Old school guys, that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
That was in the old days. It was, no, let's get on to the next. Nobody's talking about it. We're done.
Right.
Didn't find that very, very productive.
Do you feel like you saw some of, with our peer support team, we study these signs and symptoms that this stuff is affecting us, whether we talk about it or not. We're losing sleep, we're more agitated, we're more pissed, we're more despondent or, withdrawn, something like that. Like it can look a lot of different ways, right? We can be frustrated when we get home, not be the husband we want to be short with our kids, be checked out, and we've seen people on all stages of the continuum, and hopefully drawing a little attention to that is just useful.
Absolutely it is. Even on the flip side of that, to say that you don't bring family problems to work, that's not real either.
Sure.
Like I always told the guys, something's bothering you at home, bring it out. Yeah. And if it's something you need help with dealing with, we're there for you. Or if you need to go home and deal with it right now, you go home.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do. I need you on your A game when you're here.
Right.
But if you're not, let's talk about it and see what we can do to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I felt that was very important, that our crew did that.
Yeah.
So, and that was before peer support. I think even being old school, I practiced a lot of the things
Sure.
that the new culture is dealing with and doing that maybe wasn't totally accepted at the time, but you could tell by the well-knit crew that we always had and how tight it was that it was productive and the things that we did were good.
People wanted to be a part of it. I'm struck by that you can create that space where you're safe and your feelings are safe and valid, because that, I don't know that everybody has that feeling of, kind of psychological safety with their crews nowadays.
They don't. Yeah. And it's obvious. Crews go to bed at 5:30 or 6. They go in their room, they close the door. And that's the interaction. 8 to 5 done. Our crew was interaction time from the time we got there, usually till the next morning 8 because we weren't sleeping a lot. Bartering, picking on each other, calling each other names, setting little booby traps. Those little kind of things, but they go a long ways with the crew.
Yeah.
And that stuff's important, especially when you're dealing with all the awful stuff that we see.
Absolutely. Do you feel like you were intentional about where you were heading with that, or did that just come natural? Like, how can people, what did you do throughout your day to say, this is where I want to head, this is the cohesion I want to create in my crew? So
I felt that call volume was important. I always liked call volume because it kept us busy. And as you know, all heart attacks are not created equal. All fires are not created equal. Not one's the same. So there was always critical thinking involved with every call that we went on, whether it was how to get in the door, what I do about the dog, that's barking on the side, just little things, but there was always critical thinking.
Absolutely.
And so I think that helped with that cohesiveness too. I think maybe some of my upbringing with my dad, special forces guy, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, but still having a little bit of sense of humor to throw it out there, still structured, but able to adapt and be fluid. Because like we just said, nothing's ever the same.
Yeah.
And you better, every morning we would start a plan. I don't know if one day we ever finished a plan that we started.
Sure.
Because of the stuff that happened.
Sure.
But it was okay.
Sure.
Because we were good at what we needed to be good at.
Yeah. You said something there I really like, and I want to draw you out on a little bit. Do you feel like your folks performed better because they were at ease in that environment a little bit? Or do you feel, so
Absolutely.
Special Forces sounds like very rigid and that sort of thing.
That was my dad.
Okay.
So I was able to take some of that, but I was able to be open, create an environment where nobody's word was put down. Everybody's word was accepted. Learning was huge because we learned something new every day. And it wasn't me teaching it. It was somebody else out there, some kind of attitude or something they saw or something they had read or something that we learned something every day. And I don't know if it was me or the crew or what it was, but we were very open to that. There was nobody saying, you're a new guy, so I don't want to hear a word out of your mouth for a year.
Yeah.
There was none of that. So we were open. And I think they felt safe because they knew I wasn't going to go tattle on them.
Yeah.
And we dealt with it in-house to the best we can until I couldn't. But I always gave everybody the ample opportunity, let's fix it first.
They're allowed to fail within reason, right?
Which is,
and if you're going to train and learn new things,
and Howard, and some of the best lessons ever learned, or especially on my side, were some of the failures I had. I look back on that, and some of the dumb things I did were the best lessons I ever learned.
All right, do tell.
Nobody could have. I don't know if you have to edit this or not.
Perfect. Here's where the gold lies.
So here we go.
Story time. Okay.
New firefighter, but I'd been practicing, 3 or 4 years. I was fumbling putting my gloves on a car fire. Not a real big deal, but I was fumbling. So he was watching me, and I fumbled through it. Car fire went out. Afterwards, he looked at me and says, I'm going to rip your fucking head off if you do that again. Message received. I learned that very well. I never did it again. But I think in present day, some of those things and those messages in that tone wouldn't fly.
Yeah. I mean, is that how you'd talk to your crew either to make them
absolutely
feel safe
not.
and to perform
I never did.
well? Yeah.
But there were some messages that I knew that were acceptable, and I knew what he meant, and blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I never used that. I was always open. Always had fun. Very seldom did I yell, but the really cool thing is when I did yell, they knew I meant it was time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I didn't have to do that very often. A lot of stuff dealt with in-house.
Yeah.
And everybody almost always took some responsibility with whatever was going on and said, this is what I'm going to do, fix it. Said, right on, let's do it. Let me help you.
You talked about having fun. It sounds like, and I don't know how deep we need to go into this, but the fire department had a lot of fun together back in the day, which sounds like a good thing. May have gone too far at times. And how do we balance that?
We're not just firefighters on duty.
Yeah.
We're firefighters in the eyes of this community and outside, and we're held at this standard rather than this standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So regardless of right or wrong.
Do you feel at any given time, if I'm walking across the street, there's probably at least one person who recognizes me and can correlate that I am a firefighter in a small town, literally every single time.
Absolutely.
And it can sound a little bit oppressive, I guess, but one thing that I've kind of come to later in life, because like you, I was probably, more wild, made more mistakes than I should have in my teens and 20s. And that virtue is not a bad thing, that it is not. It can help us lead this life that is, I don't know, kind of contented and, happy, because we can be proud of who we are too and how we're representing ourselves and the department.
So just by being in the nature of what we do, sort of out there on the edge anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because to have the guys running in instead of the guys running out.
Absolutely.
You got to have a little bit of that personality, which I think sometimes put me out there on the edge, but a lot of times it put me right where I needed to be because it made me aggressive. It made me, like I said, run in instead of running out. I think that personality is important in this line of work, but the chance to push boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that personality is pretty important to have that little bit of in yourself, especially with what we do. So
Can't wrap us in bubble wrap.
no, cannot.
True.
No two calls are the same.
Yeah.
No two people are the same.
Yeah.
Work with their strengths.
Yeah.
Work on their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Let them be able to fail.
Yeah.
And everybody else will rally around that and make it a really cool environment to work in, which I strive to do.
I think that's what your crews, were drawn to too. And that's what I, some of the people come in with like, this is my script for the day, basically. Like, this is what this is my goal, this is my script. And I don't get the sense that you have that necessarily. You just get you, and it's going to be really cool.
Like, you get your designated stuff every day, but I don't freak out if we don't get to it because we're running calls. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Or if something takes precedence, a better learning situation, something else that's off of the wall, jump at it.
Absolutely.
Learn from it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the premise I worked off of.
All right.
So
tell me about hazmat calls. That was a big part of your career for some point, right?
I hated hazmat.
Okay.
So I was a tech rescue guy.
Okay.
And I was good at it.
Yeah.
Good at ropes, good at knots, 600-foot rappels. I was good at it. And got promoted at Station 1 for about 6 months. And then they moved me to Station 2,
Okay.
which was a hazmat station.
Okay. And the busiest station in the city.
Busiest station, hazmat. Busy I liked. I hated the hazmat.
Okay.
But I figured if I'm going to be here, I better know what I'm doing. So I dove into it. Stemmed from there. Then I got really good at it to where I think I was good at it.
Okay.
Then they moved me because I was good at it. I'm like, damn it.
What's that mindset like? Those calls are not, it's not like a structure fire. It's, you talk about that aggression in structure fire and being like a little bit on the edge. Hazmat's it's a more calculated, right?
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
So it's safely respond, isolate, deny entry, identify, notify. Those things are your block thing that you work on, and then you transport it over here and you make a plan. So it was a little bit different to a point. So when you do firefighting, plan's still there. I'm on scene, 2-story structure, fully involved. I am defensive. These are the things I'm going to do. This is what I want everybody else to do to help. Name it. So you do your thing. You do it in hazmat still, but you do it slower. The same mindset was there, but I went slower, and I had the ability, if things changed on the interior, something I didn't know, I had the luxury to say, time out, everybody back out, let's replan. Let's take another shot at this. Firefighting's a lot quicker, a lot faster pace. Sort of the same theory, though.
In that captain role, it sounds like you're still making decisions that take care of the problem and are taking care of your crew, though, in either of those realms.
I found like the last 12 years, I was probably battalion chief half the time at least.
Okay.
In the last 12 years. So that was a little bit different role because before that, I was always the doer and the person maybe setting that up and then standing back.
Yeah.
So,
do you still feel like you were able to take care of your crews from that role, even though you weren't doing?
Yes, but I had a bigger control. So instead of 5 guys or 4 guys, I had control of 20 guys.
Potential for bigger impact.
Absolutely.
But not as always as tight-knit or as close a relationship.
First call as a battalion chief, the very first day was KREX fire. I made a command decision as BC that day to evacuate the building, go defensive. And back then we didn't go defensive. I mean, we go interior, and that's what we did.
Sure.
I pulled them out, and 30 seconds after we evacuated, we had a backdraft. Pretty huge.
Yeah, that's a heavy responsibility, especially a decision to make from the outside. Were you getting confirmed report,
Absolutely.
The same report from inside?
You're only as good the decisions being made outside as the information coming from inside. So had a little resistance with that, but
for about 30 seconds?
For about 30 seconds. Yeah, as soon as they come out and it shot them out the front door, they were glad we made the decision to go defensive.
Wow.
So I came in with this idea for this new hose load with some pull loops.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you would have thought, oh my God, I was changing the world. But after practice showing them how it was done over and over and over and over again, they said, right on. Those pull loops make some sense.
It seemed like you were saying earlier that you didn't have that for your new guys, though. The year of you can't talk to me,
never.
You can't sit in this
It's very,
chair.
very clear that you're a new guy, but your inputs, I don't know your history. Because your history as a firefighter doesn't start when you're a firefighter. Mm-hmm. It starts when you're born. And those kind of things and life experiences and things you've seen and places you've been, all those make you who you are and give you a different aspect on some of the stuff that we do. And in doing that, if you can share that, maybe that's a different way for me to think, something I had never thought of before. 99% of the time I was open to that, but on some serious, dangerous times is when the orders came.
Yeah,
not very often. No conversation. Now you do it because unless it's a life safety issue that I don't see, you're going to do it like this. One
thing I see when we ask those new guys to just be quiet and assimilate to, the culture here, and the culture might be, we're all a little burned out already. You're bringing all this positive vibe, and we're not going to tell you, zip it. Please don't share that, It's like the opposite of don't honestly, rain on my parade. We're going to rain on your.
I loved having new guys.
Yeah.
Because it took my old crew that was tight-knit, running 15, 20 calls a shift for 17 years. We needed some new life. We needed some things. We needed somebody to pick on. Yeah. Somebody to try the same stupid jokes we did on everybody else, and it was still funny. But those kind of things are really important, and their input's important.
Yeah, I think being in there, when you are coaching and doing all those things, sounds like you're still doing a kind of progressive thing and working with that person, really getting to know them and
the cool thing about if I get buy-in from them and they feel safe in that environment, it gives them the opportunity to grow rather than walking on pins and needles and so afraid to do something that they're not going to be here anymore. I always made that really clear. That's not what we're doing at this station. Not the direction that we're going to go in.
Tell me about like one of the times you were kind of proud of how your crew helped somebody out. And we don't need to use names, but just somebody who was struggling, they were able to help them get where they need to be and to have a productive time, a productive life, because that's a big thing. Like deciding, should we work toward termination or should we salvage this person's career?
So we had a
That's
paramedic
life-changing.
who was brought to our station that was being fired.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. So when he came to my station, after talking to him, it wasn't really an idea about the things that he couldn't do or his skills. It was about past culture and things that were acceptable in the culture that he was in before. Not that that was wrong or bad. It was just the thing that he needed to rethink about culture and things that were okay here rather than the last place he was. And so giving him those tools and some of those things, his performance when he first got there was rough, but he was so afraid to fail. And his language was so abrupt. Coached him on some of that stuff, gave him the ability to learn. And it wasn't his decisions, it was a crew's decision. He had some medical stuff where that was his thing. But if we saw him failing at something or weak at something, we would bring something up, he would rethink it, make another decision. So he found out that it just wasn't him, it was the crew. So it wasn't his failure, it was the crew's failure. And he grew immensely within 6 months.
Cool.
And now I know at this department, he is a prized employee.
That's awesome. That's cool.
But he was weeks from not being here anymore. That was one of many.
How is being retired?
So I'm glad you asked that. It is different. First 6 months, I put hardwood floors in the house. I did backyard shed. I put new patio in. I mean, busy.
Yeah.
After 6 months, I was bored to tears. And I went from being a critical thinker at least 10 to 20 days a month to the only critical thinking that I was doing was about what the hell was I going to do that day.
Yeah.
That was hard. So I jumped back in. Safety Inc. Is this little company that I'm working for now. It's a part-time gig. They pay me a lot of money.
Perfect.
They fly me to Washington, Alaska, Utah. I get to fly all over the place.
Cool.
I teach for them.
Teaching hazmat?
Joe White convinced me to help him with the fire science program at Mesa College.
Cool.
So I'm doing that.
Colorado Mesa University.
Colorado Mesa University, sorry.
Got to represent
Old
properly.
school. I get to share some of my experiences. Get to share some of the things I know, seen, done. I still get to learn,
Yeah.
which is cool
Yeah. It's awesome.
because I don't think that should ever stop.
Yeah.
And if it does, I'm pretty sure they just put me in the dirt.
So better now. What would you have done to prepare, I guess, if you were going to do it over again? Do you think anything different?
There was a lot of really cool resources, especially as retired guys,
Okay.
to come back, share ideas, share experiences, teach hazmat, utilize us guys
Yeah, absolutely.
that have been out there, even in fire academies. Have us come in and talk for an hour
Sure.
about some of the things we've seen and done and experienced. Because that experience, you can't put that down in a book.
Yeah.
That's stuff that's real out there, and it's not in chapter 3, paragraph 6. It's
Yeah.
not in there.
It's a great point, and it's well made. There's so many guys going into retirement, and they have given many years, and we haven't. The union tries to do some stuff to bring them back together and that sort of thing. And so I certainly don't want to knock that and give it credit where the
I'm
credit's
not
due,
knocking
but we
that.
Also, that
But
the
it is
union is not.
But I'm not
the whole
talking
fire
about.
department.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the beer and hot dog session.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm talking about the working knowledge and the having some worth. And I'm way smarter about it now than I used to be.
Amazing untapped resource. Well said. Yeah. Maybe you get more sleep now, so your brain
And
functions
that was
a little
another
better.
thing. It took me like a year and a half to sleep.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get mindset, especially when you're at Station 2.
Yeah.
When you're running that 15, 20 calls a shift, blah, 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 for 20 years. When I got home, I listened to the radio. I went for walks. I did some stuff.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the
you're talking
night.
About. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, at first it gave me a little bit of anxiety.
Not having the tones.
Or not expecting it and not having it happen. Like I anticipated. I'd hear tones at City Market over the intercom, and my heart rate would kick up, 20 beats. So, no, that took me a while to get over.
How's the transition been with Lisa? You're home every night.
Oh, that's been good.
Yeah.
And so the job away, because I'll fly to Spokane for 2 weeks and stuff like that. She misses me even when I do that now.
That's great.
So she still likes me even. So. Or she tells me that anyway. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So no, that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was not on my part anyway. I should ask Lisa that question. He's home all the time.
I think that's what my wife's been thinking, actually, because
yeah,
I don't
God.
have those 2 weeks away, so I'm doing the training officer thing now.
Yeah.
Been doing shift work for about 20 years, and so coming home every night.
Yeah,
I think
she didn't
Leah's
have her
like,
own space.
Yeah,
I'm there all the
she's
time.
like-
Hey, what are you doing? I
Yeah.
have been home all day doing nothing. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, quit it.
Yeah,
You know,
she's
so-
like, when do I watch this junky TV show that I want to watch? When do I, do those things? Like, any old time, it's fine, But it's different. It's
It
a
is
little
way
different
different.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think it was more of an adaptation for her than it was for me.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to keep doing the side gig
Yeah.
because I don't know. I tried that fully retired thing.
Yeah. Well,
And one of the stipulations I said when I took the job at Safety Inc. is I said, I don't want to be anybody's boss and I don't want to do any evals. They said, right on. I said, I'm in.
nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I think it's important that we have, you still, when you make that jump to retirement, that you either have activities, direction, something that you're going to do that's something that's important to you. If not, I think you could get lost pretty easy. And like I said, that role of critical thinking, I went from every day to nothing. That was hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you need to find some direction, do something, volunteer work. Honestly, the money's not the issue. It's the doing something. I don't even know if I get paid from the college. I think I do. I think I do, but
Hoping so.
yeah, I'm hoping so. But honestly, I think I'd do it for free.
All right, a couple more questions.
Okay.
Tell me about a mentor you had.
That I had.
Yeah.
I had some coaches
Yeah.
that I aspired to. Bill Fanning was one of them. Not that he was a great coach, but he inspired great attitude because it was expected. And that's all we did. We won all the time. But it was expected.
Yeah.
So I know as I was coming up before I was promoted, I made a list of things I would never do to people. And so off of that list grew. And I tried to practice it, never to do those things that I thought were demeaning. I can think of a lot of bad mentors. I can't think of
We'll let you off the hook.
There you go.
Bill Fanning.
There-
that was college coach?
No, high school coach.
High school coach. Okay.
Yeah. College coach was still good. Like I said, I can think of, and probably for myself too, people can say he did this well, but he didn't do this well. And I can think of that for other captains that I took some really good things from and learned from.
Give me a book, a podcast, or a movie that kind of turns your crank. It can be in this realm we're talking about, or just to enjoy.
Don't necessarily agree with all of it, but it makes me think a little bit. Some Joe Rogan stuff. Don't agree with it all, but that mindset, thinking about it. I listen to a lot of talk radio. Don't necessarily agree with all of it, but it makes me think, which I like. Inspirational movies. Gladiator, Braveheart. Thought that was pretty important. In his role, leader, not the head guy, but informal leader.
Yeah.
I think that is really true, especially in fire service, because I don't, just because they put a name and some bars on your collar doesn't make you the leader. You might be the guy that talks a lot, but really there can be informal stuff that's way more important. Sometimes good and sometimes bad.
Absolutely.
So,
and people that we have a lot more interaction with, right?
Yep.
Like they maybe setting the course and doing a lot of cool stuff, and the people we generally interact with day to day are at a different level, right?
right. I've seen informal leaders take a cohesive group and turn it sour.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen an informal leader take that group and roll it into the group, which gave the leader more power, even though the informal leader was over here, but he rolled into it, made things very cohesive.
All right, a fun way to exercise now or when you were on shift?
I still do CrossFit.
Okay.
I still try to go to the gym at least 4 times a week.
Okay. That's some version of fun.
I don't know if I call it fun or not, but it's a necessary evil.
One piece of advice for people coming up.
Stay current, never quit learning. Think about tradition and that it has its role and its position in what we do, but it doesn't dictate what we do because tradition will kill people. Like I said, be very open to new ideas. When a new idea, don't completely buy into it until you experiment with it. Positive pressure ventilation was a prime example in my time. It was the thing, right? We're going to positive pressure the front room. We're going to blow all that smoke down. We're going to follow it in. We're going to put the fire out. Well, it doesn't work like that. You have to have that coordinated. You got to pop a window out in the back. You got to give it a way to go. You got to know where the seat of the fire is before you pump air into the building, right? Or you're going to burn it all up. So there were some things where guys, because it was the new modern thing, they totally bought into it without experimenting and learning and practicing and learning the ins and outs of it. I suggest they do that and realize the fire department is cyclical. If you don't like it right now, just wait about 3 or 4 years because it'll come around and then things will change and you'll do it the way you want it to. But be open to new thought, new progression. Don't totally buy till you practice it. There you go.
Thanks, Corey.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for being here.
Okay.
I think you did an awesome job taking care of your folks, and your
Right on.
time working, and appreciate you doing this. And, hopefully it spurs some conversation about how we can take care of folks once they leave the department. Still
I think it's really important.
So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, giving them some kind of input, some kind of sense of belonging still to the fire department.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure, like I say, you don't have to pay us. I mean, to come in and share those stories and share those experiences, make our 33 years have some value is really important.
Absolutely. Do what we can.
Right on.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on Going Interior. I hope the ideas shared here help you to adapt to the challenges of your life and career. Please share and like this episode if you find it useful. It's been produced by Dirk Klingman and Ellis Thompson of the Grand Junction Fire Department, with special thanks to 970 West Studio for sharing their space, equipment, and expertise. Take care and please join us again next week.